What's going on? This is the first episode of the Bobby Brink Fan Club at BBFCCAST. With me here today is Ant,
What's up, guys? I'm Matt. Nice to talk to all you guys. Hope you guys enjoy the podcast.
as well as Johnny Bootleg.
So everybody, I'm Johnny Bootleg, one of the founding members of BBFC, and I'm very happy to be here with these two to discuss the podcast and whatever else they have in store.
So these guys are pretty much the code. Like I run the Instagram account, but we all kind of founded the Bobby Brink Fan Club together. We'll get into more of that a little later, but first we're going to introduce ourselves. We'll start with you, Ant. You can introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, so I'm Anthony. I'm in college. I've basically been friends with Gavin since Gavin was born, pretty much. Good family friends. So that's kind of how I'm involved in the Bobby Brink Fan Club. I've also been friends with John and a few of the other members through club soccer. So the Bobby Brink Fan Club has been a nice place for me to kind of bring my two friend groups together, which has been really cool for me. That's a little bit about me.
What about you, Bootleg?
What's up? My name's John. Everybody calls me Bootleg because I'm a kicker on a collegiate football team. But I've started getting into the Flyers more recently, and I kind of like to give myself a pat on the back because I'm kind of the reason this whole thing started because they were my tickets that got these two into the game to start Bobby Brink Fan Club. So, yeah, I've just kind of got into the Flyers this year, and let's go Bobby Brink.
All right, and I'm Gavin. I run the account. I am, in a way, Bobby Brink Fan Club, but in reality, everybody that follows the account, anybody that interacts with the account, is the Bobby Brink Fan Club. There is no one person is the Bobby Brink Fan Club. There's no leader. But a little bit about me. I'm a senior in high school, which is crazy to think about for you guys, because a lot of people think the people that run these accounts are older. But yeah, I am a senior in high school. I've been friends with Ant for pretty much my whole life, and I've recently been becoming more friends with Bootleg as of recent, but I've known him for a couple years now. So the story behind starting the account was the game that we went to. It was October 30th against the Hurricanes. It was me, Bootleg, Ant, and another one of our friends that will probably be on the podcast at some point.
Hockey!
Yeah, he does that at the game all the time. And pretty much how it started was we were down at warm-ups. We're talking. We're like, we need to find a player. We need to pick a player that we need to root for. We need to pick a player that we just need to like pretty much glaze. I guess that's really the only way you could put it. And I think it was me that said, what about Bobby Brink? Like, he's a good player. He was very good in college, and we kind of rolled with it. And then about a month later, we started the account, and it's grown since then. It's only been a month, and we're already at 500 followers.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you kind of brought it up, and I remember you saying, like, we need to pick someone who's probably going to stick around for a while because hockey players get traded all the time. And you wanted someone that was going to represent the future, especially in this new era of Orange that they're starting with Danny Briere. And I think Bobby is perfect for that. I think he'll be around for a while. And I've said it countless times that I don't see that kid without a smile on his face. And I'm sure we'll get into that when we talk about the New Jersey game, if you have Carson on here, if you want to talk about it today, but that guy's always smiling.
Yeah, he's great. And I will bring up the New Jersey game very quickly because I do want to say like how much of an impact that this has made. We had people at the New Jersey game. We were still, I believe we were under 400 followers at this point, and we had a group of guys that walked up to us, and we had a sign that said at Bobby Brink Fan Club. Probably you guys all know from the post. It's in the post. And he walked up to us and was like, yo, you guys are Bobby Brink Fan Club? Like, please let me get a picture. Like, that right there, like, it's just very, like, cool to see, like, there's people that actually, like the account and, like, want to be a part of it. Like, it's a great feeling to have people want to take pictures with us.
Yeah, and what's crazy about it is that was like just over a month, or it might have been just under a month since we started the Instagram. So it's just crazy that quickly things have kind of escalated and gotten bigger than any of us thought. But kind of going back to what John said, I do think Bobby Brink was the perfect choice. Like, I think we didn't realize it when we picked him, but he is kind of the Flyers' cold hero. I mean, you kind of saw it at the New Jersey game. I, for one, saw it during warm-ups. Travis Konechny skated by our sign, turned around, started laughing. Zamula was laughing. So it just kind of shows that everybody loves Bobby. So I think it's the perfect kind of person to go off of and show some love to.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of awesome players on the Flyers, and I think I like all of them equally, besides maybe Mark Stahl, but you know,
Morgan Frost
too. I am Morgan Frost's biggest hater, and I don't know why. He just pisses me off. But we'll get into that at a later time. But like, just like, especially like seeing it at the New Jersey game, he was up next to us. He was smiling, laughing, and then he eventually gave us a puck. And the video of him giving us the puck was my favorite one because he's like laughing while giving us the puck, like he knows about it. And it's just like, it's really cool. Like getting like I know like these guys are also just like normal people just like us. They just play a sport and we go and watch them, but like it's really cool to see that he was actually like noticing it, like he was playing along with it. Like it's just awesome. Like he seems like a really great guy.
For sure.
He's not much older than us either. I mean, you figure me and Ant are in college and he was just drafted 2 years ago? So he's not much older than us.
2019 he was drafted.
So then 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, he's not, like I said, he's not much older than us.
Yeah, and so a little bit more backstory around the Bobby Brink fan clubs. This is actually the second time that we've attempted to make an Instagram account like this. We did it originally during the Phillies season with Christian Pache, and that one started at a game where Christian Pache came in, hit like a 2-run double or something. We were all going crazy, and that was at the time where everybody was like hating on him because he was like striking out every at bat and he wasn't doing good. Topper kept putting him in the lineup. We kind of roll with it. It was called Pache's Pack. Now the failure with that account was we didn't really put enough effort into it like we did with this one. Like we didn't really make great content. He didn't play as much as Bobby Brink does, which is another huge factor. Like Bobby plays night in, night out, like pretty much every single game. Of course, the game we went to up in Long Island, he didn't play. That was one of the few he didn't play in. But I just think doing it with the Flyers, like I know, Ant, you say this all the time, doing it with the Flyers, like you don't see a lot of Flyers pages out there.
Exactly. Yeah, and I can kind of speak on the Pache's Pack because I was the one with the Instagram. I was the one who kind of put that out there. And yeah, the issue with that was definitely like there's so many Phillies pages that you see out there that it's hard to come up with original content and it's hard to kind of make yourself stand out. That's why when we picked Bobby Brink, it was like, okay, this is a Flyers page. You don't see it a lot. So the potential of the Bobby Brink fan club blowing up was way higher than Pache's Pack. I know I maybe posted 2 things on the Pache's Pack Instagram account, and I already saw different groups. Like I know there was Marsh's Marshmallows. There was a group for Rojas. There's a group for Trey. There's a TikTok for Schwarber and Turner. Like there's just so many pages that it's hard to stick out. But when it comes to the Flyers, like you don't see it. So when you get Flyers fans on social media who are the diehard Flyers fans, or anybody that maybe is just interested in the Flyers, you see a unique page. It's easier to blow up and it's easier to reach more people.
Yeah, and again, I just think like the people that have like we had some guy, shout out my boy Nate Angle. He sent us a video on New Year's, and it was him and just a bunch of his drunk, I guess they were drunk, a bunch of his drunk friends. They were yelling in the video, and they were like follow the Bobby Brink fan club, like we love Bobby Brink, like just that. Like it's not even about bringing awareness to me, it's about bringing awareness back to the Flyers and awareness to Bobby Brink, because like nobody, like earlier this year, like at the game we went to when the fan club started, like there was nobody there. Like just they're not as cared about as like the Eagles or the, like obviously they're not going to be as cared about as the Eagles because they're the main team around here. But I mean, like teams like the Sixers sell out regular season games all the time. Like that's what we want to do with the Flyers, and we want them to be back. Like we don't want them to be the like redheaded stepchild anymore.
100%.
And I'll go off what Gavin said. Like I'm a very casual Flyers fan. I didn't start watching until the pandemic, mostly because there was nothing else on to watch. So I was watching the playoffs in the bubble. And I still remember that the exit in the playoffs, and I was heartbroken. Like I'd have been a diehard fan. And that was when I kind of fell in love with hockey, was because I felt so engaged. It's a fast-paced sport. and it's another Philadelphia team for me to support. I love it. And then when we went to the game against the Hurricanes, bringing my friends with me, being close to people that were passionate about a sport. I'm a huge Philadelphia Union fan, so fan engagement's huge there. And seeing the fan engagement at Flyers games it's awesome. And I think this year I've been to 6, and this will be my 7th one coming up when we go to the one against the Columbus. So I've gone to so many this year just because it's the Flyers, and I love it now. And this fan page is good for people that are diehard fans, and it's good for the ones that are like me and that are casuals. And we see people commenting all the time, and they might not even be the biggest Flyers fans, but they're still commenting and engaging, and we're helping create a fan base.
Yeah, it just makes everything so much more fun. Like, I know this year I've been to probably to twice as many games as I've been to like in the past years combined. And I've always been a big Flyers fan. My sport, as you guys know, you two know, is soccer. I've been a soccer player all my life. I still play in college, but hockey's kind of been my number 2, mainly because of Gavin. Growing up with Gavin's sport is hockey. So I've always kind of been into the Flyers, but I was never really excited by the Flyers. And that's definitely a different this year, where I want to go to the games and I want to watch them on TV, which is something that in years prior, it was always like, oh, the Flyers are on, but I don't really feel like watching them. Now it's exciting. Now I can sit down and watch Flyers games, whether it's 9 o'clock puck drop, 7 o'clock puck drop, whatever. I can get into a Flyers game just because it's so much more exciting. And I think a lot of that excitement comes from being a part of the Bobby Berg fan club, which has been really great time so far. And it's only been a month, which is insane to me.
And I'd also like to just add, so my brother just texted me, and he said, I was never a fan of the Flyers until I followed the fan club. And since then, I've been so much more into hockey, and I watch the games now. Just goes to show you that even the most casual of fans get involved because of something very, very small.
Yeah, and like for example, like Carson, like he'll be on here at some point. I'm sure he will because he's been getting into hockey as well. Like, yeah, he played like Chell, and like he loved playing that with us, but like he didn't know anybody and he didn't know anything about the sport, like besides playing Chell with us. And I just think like now him, like Carson sits at home and watches Flyers games. Like not in my wildest dreams did I ever think that would happen. And it's like, that's what this account is doing. It's like bringing people that already watch hockey and that are very diehard Flyers fans like me, like bringing them to the Flyers and keeping them around and like making them like eager to like watch this team. And then there's the people like you, John, and like Carson that never really watched hockey like that, like as much as we do now. It's like, it's awesome to see like there's people that are willing to get into the Flyers, and like the new era is definitely helping as well. But I think like just like even commenting on like, even like I comment on some things like just as jokes, and like people will comment back and be like I love your page, like stuff like that. Like people are engaged in it, and that's the huge part about it. That's like one of the big reasons why I love doing this.
I mean, if you would have told me 5 years ago I'd be staying up for a 10 p.m. puck drop against the Seattle Kraken or Vancouver Canucks, I'd have called you absolutely crazy, because there's multiple times where the Union or Phillies or even the Eagles, when they play prime time at night, where I don't even stay up the whole game, or I don't even stay up to watch the opening kickoff. So it's crazy that I'm staying up until 1 o'clock in the morning watching the Flyers now. And if you would have said that 4 or 5 years ago, I would never have thought that would happen.
And for me as well, like hockey's always been my sport. I watch every Eagles game. I watch a lot of Sixers. I watch probably majority, like 80% of the Phillies games this year. And I went to a lot of Phillies games as well. The Flyers have always been the team for me, because when I was younger, like obviously I played hockey. I was a really big Flyers fan. Like, but even when I was that, like I wouldn't stay up till 10 at night, like waiting for puck drop. Like I would go to bed and like get ready for school in the morning, because like it's all right. Like I can wake up and watch the highlights, but like where's the fun in that now? Like there's a reason to like, it gives me a reason to watch the games. And it's like, not only is the team fun, and that's part of the reason, but like also like looking at watching games and be like, okay, what content can I put out for tonight's win or tonight's loss? Like depending on what happens.
Yeah, it's just a lot of fun, just overall more exciting. Like I'm really looking forward to some things we have planned when it comes to actually going to the games in person. And as we build up that community, I mean, things are just going to get way more fun. I know we're going to definitely plan some tailgates where we let you guys know where we're at, games. That'll be super fun, kind of as we get a bigger community. So we kind of, I mean, the goal was just to hang out with Flyers fans, kind of spread the love. And I feel like that's what we were doing. It's a lot of fun so far.
Yeah, and I do want to say like a couple more things about like the podcast before we actually get into some like actual topics. So it almost like I was driving up like literally like an hour ago. I was driving and I was listening to WIP and it's like I don't really necessarily want our podcast to sound like a sports radio, but like it's a discussion about sports with a mixture of like our own life. So like a lot of people are like, "Oh, cool, like a Flyers podcast." Like, but what are you going to do when like you don't have any Flyers to talk about? Well, you can like we're going to talk about Eagles, Sixers, other sports, like the NFL big because we're all big NFL fans. I mean, we all play fantasy football. We're all very engaged in the NFL. So like that's going to be a talking point. There's going to be a lot of Phillies talk, and it's not just going to be a podcast for Flyers fans. It's going to be a podcast for people that like sports.
Plus, you can also throw personal stories in there as well. So, I mean, it kind of
those are
well.
going to be cool as well. I feel like, and I'm just excited for the podcast to be started. It's very like it. I mean, me and Ant, especially me and Ant, have been always said like, what if we start a podcast? What if we start a podcast? But then we're like, we have really like, where would we post it? How would we get engagement? Well, this is now our excuse to start a podcast because we have all these people that will. I'm sure people will watch. I mean, I hope people would watch it, and eventually like growing it on TikTok because I see like my whole TikTok for you page is just people like podcasts and people like it gets around and it's like that's something that we want to do to further grow the account.
Yeah, we have a podcast as well. Sorry to cut you off, John, but
nah, you good.
But again, as we evolve with the podcast, you'll see face cams, stuff like that, kind of be more interactive. We'll definitely have some fans on the podcast as well because we love the support from everybody already. And so, you know, just kind of stay involved. We really appreciate you guys listening. So,
and as I was saying, everybody starts somewhere. I mean, we're starting off here on a Zoom call after Discord failed us. I mean, we're trying and we're trying to do everything we can, and I'm sure eventually, like you see those people where they have their own apartment or their own room where they film a podcast. I'm sure that's going to be us soon. That we don't know where we're going to end up, but we have goals, and we just hope that everybody that watches supports us through and through, no matter what happens.
Yeah, and like I've also like my parents aren't really like big into like social media. Like I know like my mom and my sister yesterday were like they were like joking with me like, oh, like you have like a weird obsession with a Flyers player, like you have a whole Instagram account about it. But that's not what this is. Like it's more like building a community and like having people like I referred to earlier, like the people at the Devils game that wanted a picture with us, like that to me, and like people that were at the Devils game like commented on the post saying like, oh, I saw you at the game, like you guys are awesome, like stuff like that. Just like getting recognition. Like it's not about getting famous, and it's not about getting all this like attention from people, and like only in it for like the followers, and like eventually getting money off of it if we do. Which I mean, it would be awesome to get money off of this, like. That is a goal that we have, but that's not the main goal. It's the main goal is to make friends, like build a community, and just have a lot of fun with people that enjoy what we enjoy.
And going off of what Gavin said, so I was most recently at the game against the Predators right before Christmas, and I was at my seat, and I brought a little cardboard sign that said "at Bobby Brink Fan Club," and I'm carrying it around, and someone goes, "Are you the person that runs that account?" And I was like, "No, just my friend does." And they're like, "I love that content. You guys need to keep it up. Like, it's awesome." And then I'm just sitting in the seat, and I'm holding it up because I'm trying to get it on the camera. And someone like 2 sections over from me yells, "I just followed Bobby Brink Fan Club. Let's go!" Like, it's just about engagement, really. We're not obsessed with a certain player. We just want to grow the community, and we want to get him recognition as well.
Exactly. And I mean, as much as we want to grow the community, it's also just fun. Like internally, it's so fun to help Gav with the memes or things like that. I mean, it's just so fun to do and to be a part of. And we hope you guys have just as much fun. Like we have plans. I know I have, I recently made a purchase that's in the works. That's Bobby Brink Fan Club related. So that'll be out on the that'll be on the Instagram when we get it. But things like that, if you guys want to make posters, share them, we'll post them on the Instagram. You saw with Nate's video that definitely made my New Year's Eve. We shared a laugh over that.
That was
But
sick.
yeah, just things like that, show some love, and we'll definitely repost everything we see and show you guys that we really appreciate the support.
And another thing that I was seeing like over Christmas, like somebody got a Brink jersey and immediately posted on their story and was like, "Got this because of you," and tagged me. It's like that's another thing. And like I'm sure Bobby doesn't see it now, and I don't know that he uses Instagram a whole lot. And I mean, obviously, we'll probably never know that because we're not friends with the guy. But like, I'm sure like him seeing the sign in New Jersey and like noticing that there's people that like are huge fans of him, like that's got to be feel so welcoming. Like he's a rookie, and like I was talking about this with my mom the other day. Like he's a rookie, and like he's not really like adjusted. Like Philly's a tough place to play in for everybody, and it's just like he was smiling and laughing, and like it's almost like he feels welcomed here by us. And I mean, obviously the other fans that aren't involved with Bobby Brink fan club are probably doing the same thing, but I'm sure we're helping out, making him feel welcome, which is another great thing. Why would we do this?
Yeah, I agree. Especially after the New Jersey game, I feel like I don't know if he knows us, but he definitely has some sort of feeling that something's going on. Especially because I forgot to touch on this, Gav, about his high school friends that followed the fan club.
Oh yeah, I did forget about them. And they give us ideas about it as well. I'm guessing they were high school friends that he had, because I mean the one tagged the other and they're followed by Bobby. Bobby's from Minnesota. They're from Minnesota. Shout out Jack Anderson. He follows the page. We'll give him a little shout. But yeah, like just like stuff like that. Like it's cool to get one step closer. And like in March they're doing the carnival. I know we're gonna have an opportunity to potentially meet Bobby there, which could be another way to get him to notice the account. And even if he doesn't notice it, like we have people that love the account. We have people that are like excited for the post, which is another like warm feeling.
Definitely, it's just a cool thing to be a part of overall. Well, Bobby Brink.
I do now want to get into a little bit more about just the Flyers in general and about Cutter Gauthier in the World Juniors been lighting it up. A lot of assists. He's it's very uncharacteristic about him. He is obviously a very great player, but he's a goal scorer more than a assist guy. And it's very cool to see that he's developing, and obviously US is now the favorite to win with Canada being eliminated. And I'm really excited for Cutter to come over.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about how much talent we have is insane. Like, think about all our rookies. Like, we have so many rookies that have proven that they're ready to play now, or even just young guys in general. Like, Forrester plays like a veteran. Even Bobby, he makes defensive plays that you would think he's a veteran. Zamula is breaking out now. Then we have prospects like Cutter and Mishkov when he finally comes over. Like, this team is definitely set up for success in 4 or 5 years, which is really exciting to watch right now. And it makes the team so much more exciting to watch right now when you know that good things are on the way.
Well, as I mentioned before, I was a very casual Flyers fan going into this year, and just reading all like social media and what I knew vaguely about the team, I honestly went into the season maybe expecting 15 wins, and in the first half, we're not even already halfway through the season now. About
A little bit.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so
The unofficial halfway point, I'd say.
yeah, so at the unofficial halfway point, we've already beat what my expectation was for the season, when I thought we were going to be tanking all year. And basically this team just said, screw that, screw what the media thinks. We have the talent. We're going to go out there and we're going to prove it. And then next year you're getting Gauthier and Michkov. You're just adding to that talent.
Yeah, and I I honestly dislike the fans that are like telling the player, like Carter Hart had a quote like a week ago about how fans were going up to him in a local mall and were like purposely let goals in, like you guys should start tanking, like we want to rebuild. That's not like, you can't do that in the NHL. And I know Jim Jackson brought up this point in a podcast earlier before the offseason. If you wanted like a Sam Hinkie Sixers process type rebuild, the Flyers wouldn't have they wouldn't have John Tortorella, and two, they would be awful. And I don't think the Flyers want to do that because, one, it would only make people more angry because, I mean, look at the Sixers process. One, hasn't worked, really. They haven't made it out of the second round. And Bede's the only player really left out of the process. And if you think about it, like, look at Edmonton in the 2010s. They had how many top 5, top 10 picks that didn't work? Sure, they have McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins, but like Nail Yakupov and Taylor Hall, and like I'm pretty sure they traded Matt Barzal for Griffin Reinhart. Like it doesn't work.
And I feel like too, like people assume that tanking is just automatically going to make you good at the end of it. And I feel like that is something in all sports that people think. And you see sometimes, like, I mean, the Sixers process is up for debate, but it doesn't always work. So why would you tank when you can load your team up with young guys with no expectations? Because that's why I think the Flyers are so successful, because they have no expectations. They're not supposed to be good. So they don't have to play with any pressure. They go out, they play the hockey that they know how to play. They have a great leader for this team in Tortorella. He's the exact type of coach that you need when you're in this stage. And you have a GM who isn't afraid to tell it how it is. That's one thing I love about Danny Briere. He came in and he said, look, this is a revamp. It's going to take time. And I mean, as Philadelphia fans, we've been through it all. We can respect that. At least I can. I can respect a GM coming in and saying, look, we know what we have right now isn't good. And that's not what the fans want, but we're going to do everything we can to get it there.
And look, that's you knew that John Tortorella was not going to let this team suck, because then it would call like Columbus. Columbus, after the 2019 year, they weren't very good. Like, they upset Tampa that one year. That was crazy. And then they lost Duchesne. They lost Panarin. It's like they really didn't have a lot left. And Torts was starting to not mesh with Pierre-Luc Dubois. And then he got traded for Laine. Wasn't meshing with Laine. So Torts ended up getting fired. It's like John Tortorella wants his players to play how you're supposed to play and be physical. Like the game where Joel Farabee got benched earlier this year, he played 50-some seconds. It reminds me of like what my dad said when I used to play hockey, and like how if I didn't have a good coach and my coach was like somebody wasn't like playing hard and wasn't like doing what they were supposed to do. My dad would always say, if I was the coach, I would sit him on the bench and he wouldn't play the rest of the game. And that's how John Tortorella is. And I think that's how all coaches should be, because you don't want your team to suck. The goal isn't to suck. Any team, like, for example, we were talking about how the Arizona Cardinals, they just beat the Eagles, how everybody's like, oh, like the card, like, why are you even winning? Like, there's no point. Well, these guys are professionals. Do you think they want to go out there every day and lose? Like, it's only going to make the player development worse if they're not winning.
Exactly. It just makes the culture worse, no matter what happens. Another thing I love, kind of back to what we were talking about, Torts, like, I think the culture, Torts kind of brings the culture out in the players, because you think about how many young players we have. The fact that they can deal with things like, for example, Farabee. Like, Farabee didn't play well. He got benched. He played 50 seconds the entire game. He was basically opening and closing the gate for the whole third period. But he's able to take that. It's crazy because it's not a me thing. It's a team thing, which is crazy to think that as young of a team we are, we're actually thriving in that. I mean, I, for one, saw a potential of players not being able to deal with it, especially the young guys coming out, maybe getting on Torts, making it clear that they're not happy. And the fact that nobody has done that so far is kind of a testament to the culture, and just shows that everybody on the team wants to win, and they put the teams over themselves, which is something that sometimes takes a little bit for young players to adjust to. But with this team, you don't see it.
Yeah, and again, like I feel like for Torts, it's like he's never really been on a bad team. Like, I mean, I can't really remember a time like before the Flyers where, like, I mean, even last year with all the injuries they had, like Coots and Atkinson were out. They've been without Ryan Ellis since, you would think, the last century.
Yes,
but like, I mean, the Flyers were destroyed as a franchise last year. They didn't have players that were meshing right. They didn't really have like that star player because Coots and Atkinson were out for pretty much the whole year, and they still were almost at hockey 500. Like that is coaching. they at one point, I'm pretty sure, had Wade Allison was on the starting roster at the beginning of the year because so many injuries had happened before the season even started. And Torts somehow managed to get them only like 10 or 15 points away from a playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, I could go down the list. You think of Wade Allison, Kiefer Bellows was there, Jackson Cates. Like, there's so many guys. Hayden Hodgson. There's so many players that just jumped. There's so many players that are going to be in irrelevant Flyers posts in the near future.
Yeah,
that team last year. It's crazy.
Got anything to add, Nolik?
I'm very casual when it comes to this stuff, so talking in-depth hockey is not my strong suit at all. If we were to talk other sports, I could go on for hours.
Well, there's been a lot of news about the Eagles lately, so we can get into that.
We just got news from the Eagles, actually. We can get into that.
So, I'll let you go with that, Ant. I'll let you run with that.
Yeah, I'll continue. So, about an hour ago, I'd say 6 Eagles have been named to the Pro Bowl. Lane Johnson, A.J. Brown, Landon Dickerson, Hassan Reddick, Jason Kelsey, and DeAndre Swift. 9 alternates, Jake Elliott, Jalen Hurts.
Let's go.
Britton Covey, Eagles legend.
Let's go.
How did Britton Covey not make it?
I don't know. Josh Sweat, Jordan Mailata, Jalen Carter, Dallas Goedert, and Cam Jurgens. Very interesting list.
Yeah, and obviously the bigger story today was the A.J. Brown media conference. I don't necessarily know that I wanted him to do that because now it leaves more questions up in the air. Like the thing where he said about the Seattle game where like it was them calling for like the players went and called for a deep shot to get a pass interference. Even like I understand that they're trying to like they're trying to win the game, but how often does that really happen? I mean, the last time I've seen that happen was the COVID year. I remember the exact game. The Chargers and the Broncos are playing. The Broncos went deep. Chargers got PI. They lost. How often do you really see that happen?
So let me just go off of this as I play the sport in college. You don't see it very often. However, when you talk about what he was actually doing and he was saying that the players took it into your own hands, and obviously AJ wasn't speaking because of coaching. At least he admitted that Sirianni like had the balls to say like it was his fault. And at least the player camaraderie never went like away when you think about it. Like they all trusted each other with that call. But when you talk about the pass interference, like that call rarely ever happens, and you're even if it's not that late in the game, you're never seeing that called there anyway on a deep shot. So I don't understand what that was coming from. But then again, I'm only a kicker, so what do I know?
Yeah.
You're America's kicker though, so it's fine.
I think Sirianni had a press conference too this morning when I was on my way to school. I was listening to it, and he's just like, I think Nick Sirianni, like, it's obviously hard to change your personality, but like, you have to remember that you're a head coach of an NFL team, and the way he acts, it's like he's almost being babysat by Jalen Hurts. Like in the Super Bowl, he put his arm out for something. I don't remember what it was, and Jalen was like, "Dude, calm down. Like, you don't need to do that." And it's like, when do you ever see Andy Reid or Sean McVay or like Kyle Shanahan even or obviously Bill Belichick? You don't see NFL coaches doing that. And like the way he acted after the Chiefs game, like, dude, it's a regular season game. You got bailed out by a drop. Like you can't act that way, and you can't have your players babysitting you. You have to build a culture, and I don't think Nick Sirianni's been able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for emotion. Like, I'm all for showing emotion, things like that. And I mean, I know there's times where a win's a win. It's just kind of like balancing it. Like, you know, you're in the spotlight, you're a head coach. You know, everything you do is going to get out there. So it's just kind of about balancing your emotions with then kind of dealing with the responsibility and knowing like, hey, maybe this isn't the way I should act. I mean, I'm very conflicted about Nick right now. I mean, people are saying he's on the hot seat. I think that's a bit of a stretch. But I also do understand the argument for that, just kind of wanting a change. And I mean, I know people associate him with the offense. People say, oh, it's his offense. And then people go back and say, well, just because it's his offense doesn't mean he's calling the plays. And I mean, you can go back and forth with that forever. It's just kind of him accepting his responsibility, at least in my opinion.
All right. So I think another thing, just like like about the Eagles, like just something about them. Like everybody wants to bring up last year and like what worked last year. Well, this is this year. You can't like and like I don't think it's necessarily Sirianni is getting carried by like he got carried by Shane Steichen and John Gannon. I just think they were better coordinators than Brian Johnson and Sean Desai and Matt Patricia. And I think like they're just like they were so high on Brian Johnson because they want to give Jalen Hurts. Like obviously they brought in Jalen Hurts' former college teammate Devontae Smith. They brought in AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts' best friend. Now they bring in Brian Johnson, and Brian Johnson was Jalen Hurts' quarterback coach, the guy who was around him all the time. And it's like, at some point, you got to stop being the guy's friend, and you got to start like doing business. It's a business. It's not a like. Some people say like, oh, they go out there and play football. Like that must be so fun. It's a business.
I agree. At some point, it's got to. I mean, was Brian Johnson the real number one choice if he wasn't associated with Jalen Hurts previously? The world may never know. But as far as the coordinators go, I just think it's funny that we were all coming for Jonathan Gannon's head last year, and now it's like, oh my God, I wish we had Jonathan Gannon back. Like, who would have thought at the beginning of the season we'd be begging for John Gannon back? That is where this team is at right now. Oh, just give me a headache.
Going off of what Gavin said, like it's all sport is a business. Like at any moment, you can get cut, you can be traded, anything can happen. And I know specifically from the kicker position, no one's job is safe. And like when you talk about a business, like that's the one position that everybody is always looking for. And like we were talking about with the coordinators, like you got to stop being everybody's friend and you got to do what's going to work to win. Like if Jake Elliott mysteriously missed all of his field goals for the first 3 games of the season next year, you wouldn't be surprised if he got cut because those points, that costs you games. But if, these coordinators are making bad calls and you're like, well, why isn't anything happening? Why isn't anybody getting replaced? That's where questions get asked when you look at it from a business.
Exactly. And the reason can't be, well, because he's our quarterback's friend. And especially, like you said, like kickers, that kicker position is insane. I don't know how they do it. I just saw the other day. I mean, at the beginning of the year, the Rams cut Brett Maher and promoted Lucas. I think his name's Havershik. I think that's how you say his last name.
Yeah.
Just cut Havershik and re-sign Maher. Like, it's just crazy. But I mean, those are the types of moves that sometimes they have to do.
I know from a fantasy standpoint, when bringing like you want to talk about the Brett Maher thing, like Brett Maher was my fantasy kicker this year in my big money league, and I was like very pissed when they cut him because he was putting up a lot of fantasy points, and everybody's like, well, he was doing really good, like judging by his fantasy, but like fantasy doesn't really decide how you play. Like Justin Fields puts up a bunch of points, and he's not really that great of a quarterback, but also I think it's like, especially as a kicker, and I know John, you probably know more about this than I do. Like you have very like little room for error as a kicker, and you really need to like be on top of it. Like Brandon Aubrey, do you think Brandon Aubrey would still be the kicker of the Dallas Cowboys if he missed 5 field goals in the first 10 games?
I was questioning it after he missed that first PAT. If he didn't make those next 3 field goals, I would have thought that he's going to get cut. I mean, you come in and you're missing PATs, like that's not a great look, Like you said, your margin for error is very, very small. And I know it personally, like even when you miss one, like you feel terrible because you don't know what's going to happen to your job. And I was the only kicker that was rostered this year, and I had no clue what would happen to mine when I missed one.
Yeah, and I like it's probably like a little bit. I would assume it's a little different in college because like they're not paying you to kick the ball. Like college is like, especially D3, like it's a learning experience, like stuff like that. Like it, but like the NFL, man, it's so weird though because there's also teams like the Minnesota Vikings. Like Blair Walsh was their kicker, and for a while, and then he wasn't ever good, and then he stayed on the team, and eventually it cost them an entire season. Like a kicker cost the team the entire season, and they also had Blair Walsh also got signed to I think Seattle later in his career, and he still was bad, and he played for them in pivotal games. Like people don't really think about the kicker; it's like a meaningless position, but when you really think about it, like the kicker is probably the most important position in football, really, behind quarterback.
I mean, I don't see any other player. I mean, on the Eagles, I think I have a tweet somewhere about last year. Jake Elliott was like the number 2 leading scorer on the Eagles after Hurts, and that's because he gets all those touchdowns. And last year, Elliott's field goal total was nowhere near what it is this year. I mean, I know through like 5 games, he had 48 points just on field goals. So, like, 48 points, and some of those decided games. Like, he had the walk-off against Washington, which was insane to watch. And he had a bunch of other ones where, think about the Bills game. He doesn't make that. We don't go to overtime and we don't win. It's quite simple. And that's points that decide games all the time.
Exactly, yeah. People are always so quick to diss kickers, but I mean, between the business part of it and also just going out there and kicking, like, it's definitely one of, if not the most challenging positions, which is crazy to think about. But
I mean, I know you two have definitely said bad things about a kicker, but since I've been in this friend group, like, I don't think I've ever heard a single one of you guys diss one of them.
I think our way of dissing kickers is just saying put you in the league. Like, dude, how does Joey Sly still have a job? Oh my god.
that is crazy.
Every time I check a Commanders game, he has a missed PAT or a missed field goal. And he wasn't ever good on the Panthers either. He's just a really strong leg. Which, again, like, people say, like, oh, like Justin Tucker could make a 66-yard field goal. But what if Justin Tucker wasn't accurate? He wouldn't be on a team.
And that's the thing that people forget. Like, I remember talking to people about this, and they were like, yeah, he's got hell of a leg. And it's like, well, yeah, but the reason he's regarded as the best is because he has the highest made percentage in NFL history with the largest sample size.
Exactly.
Because, like, Younghoe Koo is actually ahead of him now, but the sample size is so drastic. I think Tucker has almost like 300 more kicks than him. And yet Tucker's only like 0.1% behind him, which is crazy.
That's nuts. You get Joey Sly, who can kick the ball 80 yards, but he kicks it sideways. So, I mean, what would you rather?
Yeah. And, like, another thing I always see is, like you guys know Destroying?
Yeah.
Dude, he's a great kicker, don't get me wrong. He can kick the ball. He's got a leg, like Nolik says. He's got a leg. He kicked in the CFL and he sucked and got cut. You can kick from as far as you want, but if you can't do it in a real game setting, and if you can't do it accurately, you're not going anywhere and you're not going to have a job.
I'll tell you what, it is entirely different when it's live snap and hold and you have a bunch of, 6'5", 250-pound guys running at you trying to block that kick. It is insanely hard, and it's very different.
Yeah, like, imagine Jordan Davis running at you while you're trying to kick. Like, you're shaking in your damn boots, like you're shitting yourself.
I mean, what's Jordan Davis's build, right? Whatever, he's six.
He's like 6'4", 320, and he runs like a 4.5. And
then Jake Elliott is 5'9", 180 pounds.
He probably runs like a 4.7, 4.8. Like,
I'm just saying, but like, that's the size difference, that your kicker is 5'9", 5'10" normally. And yet he has guys that are about 6'4" to 6'6" and over 300 pounds running at him, and they can run insanely fast.
Yeah. The casual argument I see for guys like Destroying is, like, people will say, well, you can't do it in pads. And then, like, he'll go out and do it in pads, and he'll think that he broke the argument. The issue is you can do it in pads with the ball on the ground as the only person on the field, and it doesn't make a difference. Like, you're still not in the game scenario where there's thousands of people in the stadium and there's zero pressure. It's more of a mental, physical thing.
Getting like,
I remember our homecoming game, and I think Ant recorded it.
I did.
And, like, I remember knowing, like, this game is being live streamed, and there's probably 2,000-3,000 people in the stands. It's the largest crowd I've ever played in front of. Like, just 3,000 fans was crazy for me. So imagine what it's like when you have, the sold out Lincoln Financial Field. I mean,
yeah. And, like, it goes for all sports. Like I see this goalie on TikTok all the time. That's like, he's like a beer league goalie, and he's like, he makes a bunch of, like, really good saves. And, like, but he would never be able to do that in the NHL. Not only because the skill level, he could be very skilled, but one, the skill level's crazier, like way crazier. And two, like, you're playing against, like, you're in a beer league, not in front of anybody. And another thing I see, it's like, people are saying, like, you guys know Pavel Barber?
Yeah.
I don't get me wrong, his content's good, and I won't bash his content because it is good content. He is not he would never be a good hockey player in a way where, like, sure, he can do all those crazy dangles and, like, yeah, like that shit is so cool to watch. I watch his stuff all the time. But I can't see a world where Pavel Barber is even a fourth liner in the AHL, because I don't believe that content creator, like, if he was really that good, he wouldn't be making Instagram content. He would be in the NHL.
Yeah, and I mean, think about even soccer. I know Ant probably remembers the F2 freestylers, right?
Just about to mention them. I was just
like I remember watching when I was younger. You would watch. They had one video where they actually went and played in a game, and like they looked like they were just a regular player out there. Like they weren't doing any of those fancy skill moves or anything. Like they looked like they were just like a regular Sunday league player where they were playing.
Yeah,
so I mean,
they know how to make content and reach a larger audience, and that's their main goal.
Yeah, it's like Gavin said, if they were actually that good, they wouldn't be on Instagram making, content, or they wouldn't be on YouTube making videos.
Exactly. And not that I hate on any of those content creators. Like I love the F2 freestylers when I was a kid. I think they're great. But it's just kind of, I love destroying too. But it's just kind of knowing how to stay in your lane, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's 100% that when it comes to sports. Like, keep your head down, stay humble. And if you really, you can get anywhere you want to if you say like that. But when you see, like you mentioned with destroying, he's like, oh, I debunked the argument with I can't kick in pads. But then Gavin brings up his CFL highlights. Like,
yeah, just like knowing your place, kind of. Like nobody's disrespecting you. Like nobody's going to outright say, oh, you can't play in the NFL. But it's like you start to push that agenda, and then it gets to the point where it's like, all right, come on.
I don't even think it's that. I think it's more the fans. Like, I don't think Destroy, obviously he probably thinks he's a great kicker because he is. He probably has that mindset, like, hey, I'm a great kicker. But, like, I'm sure it's more of the fans that say stuff like that. Like, why isn't this guy in the league? Like, he can kick better than a guy like Joey Sly. But there's a reason he's not in the NFL, because he hasn't panned out at all.
Yeah, because he's stuck on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, where he's making content, and that's what he's good at.
Which he makes a lot of money doing that. Like, he doesn't, like, Destroying doesn't need to go to the NFL because he's making so much damn money on social media, and like he's hanging out with like Tyreek Hill and like Justin Jefferson. Like, stuff like that is what people don't understand either. It's like, why would you want to do? People always say, like, why would you want to do that when you're skilled enough to go to the NFL? He's making not anywhere near NFL money, but he's still making great money for being a content creator and not really having a quote unquote job.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think his content's great. I still think it's funny that he goes on all those college visits when he's so old. He's so much older now.
Yeah,
he goes on all kinds of college visits. But again, as a college athlete, it's kind of cool to watch, so I can respect it.
All right, you guys have anything else you want to talk about? You want to leave it off here? Or?
No, I think we're good. I think we covered everything. Appreciate you guys listening to the first episode for sure. And I mean, we'll get into a lot more topics as we go along. This is kind of just an intro thing. I think I speak for all three of us when we say that. It's just kind of getting some feelers out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done this before. I've never it's very weird to think about sitting in my room alone talking to people on a Zoom call about sports and like knowing that, I mean, obviously like it's going to go somewhere, but like it's so like it's like weird to me, like doing stuff like that sometimes. Like it's a little different than like sitting in like an Xbox party and playing video games like that. Like it's just like I'm kind of sitting here staring at the wall just talking about sports.
I was just about to say the same thing. Like, this is stuff that we talk about in Xbox parties or in a group chat, and it never makes it out of those places. And now that we actually get to put this out for the public to enjoy, it's kind of a surreal feeling knowing that, like we said before about the fan club, it kind of just started as almost a joke.
Yeah,
really, right? I mean,
it's crazy.
And now we're here. We have over 500 followers now, and we're going to more games together. And now we have a podcast. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah. It's always been not a dream. I feel like a dream's kind of corny to say, but like it always has been like a thing that I've always wanted to do, is start a podcast and get like people on board. But yeah, I do appreciate the people who listened, obviously all the way through. I'm sure there's going to be people. There's obviously people. I've been one of those people before. Start a podcast, listen to the first 20 minutes, get bored, and I mean, they like. For me, I like music in my ears. I'm not really a big podcast listener. I do listen to podcasts, but like, it's different when you have stuff like that. But I do appreciate it.
And if you enjoy listening to sports talk radio like WIP or The Fanatic, this is definitely a podcast I think for people to listen to, because while we'll talk about the Flyers a little bit, I mean, we went from Bobby Brink to General Flyers to the Eagles Pro Bowlers to the coaches, and then the kicking, and then content creators. Like, we can go on for hours about anything, and it's kind of like listening to a sports talk radio.
Yeah,
Exactly. And I mean, as we get more, like next week on our second one, like there'll be more news, recent news that we can talk about. But I think it was important for us that you guys just kind of learned a little bit more about us and realized like we're all high school and college kids. So if you guys ever run into us, I know our target audience are probably kids around our age. So if you guys ever run into us, just know we're just like you guys. We're not some old heads that made an Instagram page, but we'd love to get to know you guys and everybody around our age as well. So,
and if you guys are ever at Flyers games, or you see that we're at, Philly, Sixers, whatever we might be at, never be afraid to reach out, say hello, come meet up with us. We're glad to talk about any Philly sports, anything. I mean, if you ever see us at a Sixers game, we'll definitely talk Sixers with you, because we are probably, I think all three of us are really big Sixers fans. So we'll talk
really
about
big
that all the time.
everything.
yeah, exactly. That's what makes it so much better. And we're gonna make it a point to share with you guys when we go to games. So I know whenever we go to the Flyers games, we're gonna try to put out those game day posts that you guys know that we're gonna be at the games and then where we're gonna be. So if you guys ever want to meet up, take a few pictures for the Instagram, whatever, we are definitely down for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was a great first episode. We got, as you guys probably will be listening to this after the fact, but Flyers, Blue Jackets tomorrow. All three of us will be in attendance. A little tailgate going on. Probably, well, that'll be on the story. I'm sure we'll meet up with a couple people. Also got USA versus Finland semifinal tomorrow for the World Juniors. That's another big talking point we could have for the next podcast.
And we'll also have the season finale of Eagles and Giants. That'll be a big deal, talking about upcoming playoff season and standings and everything.
Yeah, especially because we'll know the matchup by then as well.
Which right now it's looking like the Tampa Bay Bucks as of today.
Yeah, as of today, they would be playing the Bucks.
And I think that's how it's going to stand.
Yeah, I do too. All right, well, it's a great first episode. See you guys next time.
See you guys next time.
Listening.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on here. It was a great opportunity. I love speaking on this. You guys can invite me back whenever you want.
Yeah, I mean, you'll probably be on this more than half the time.
That sounds
more than 75% of the time. All right, well,
I like that.
that's it. See you guys later.
See you guys.